Okay, welcome everyone to our Sunday evening Dharma sharing session. So a number of reasons why I want to do this sutra again. It's actually not again. So before, when I did the talk on the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, I went through it in really great details, like sentence by sentence. But this time it will be a bit different. Because for a lot of beginners, when they're not so familiar with it, it may be quite difficult to go through the whole sutra. It's not a relatively long sutra, but it's also not short. It's one of the 5 Pure Land sutras in Chinese Pure Land Buddhism. Not the shortest. The shortest would be from the Sargama Sutra, the extract on Bodhisattva Mahasamapprapta's Nyingpo Samadhi, and also Amitabha Sutra. But the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra is also extremely significant. The more I deepen my study on the path, the Pure Land path and the path of Mahayana Buddhism, the more I realize how incredibly important this sutra actually is. And as most of you, or all of you probably know that I am currently living in a temple, training to be a nun. I'm hoping maybe I'll take the monastic life like properly in a year's time. So let's see what Amitabha Buddha has arranged for me. And my life in the temple has been really extremely busy in a good way. So not only we have to do a lot of daily cleaning, like I shared before, 6-8 hours of daily cleaning also counts as our Dharma practice. Our Dharma is our life. It doesn't matter what we do. If we can do it in the present and we can Nyingpo while we're doing it, it's also our Dharma practice. And also if we can practice the 10 great practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra in our daily life, it's also our Dharma practice. So our life and the Dharma is not separated. The Buddha Dharma is our life. Our life is also the Dharma. And the more I deepen myself, my study on this path, the more I realize this. And also currently, one of my homework is to recite the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So Master Rensha has been quite strict with me, and I need to recite all the 5 Pure Land sutras by heart. So this is actually basic fundamental training for anyone who wants to expound the Dharma properly in the future. And I feel really grateful, and definitely really this process of recitation really helps deepening my understanding in the sutra, and this will also allow me to be able to share this much better in the near future. And this time, why I feel like talking about the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So a few reasons, apart from I'm also reciting the sutras and again deepening my study on it. And the more I study, the more I realize how practical this actually is. Sometimes if you just go and read the sutras, you may have no idea without a teacher actually talking to you about it, what this actually means. We will be a bit lost. What did the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra actually told us? What exactly are the 10 great vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, and how can we apply them in our daily life? So this will be the essence of the series of Dharma talk I'm preparing for this time. So it will be different from what I did before, which was to go through the sutra sentence by sentence, word by word. Rather, this time we'll be focusing more on the spirit of the sutra, the spirit of the 10 great practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, and exactly how we can apply them in our everyday life. And another reason I feel like doing this sutra at this time, it was also because it was the enlightenment of Bodhisattva Manjushri, which was 2 weeks ago. And last week, I was planning to do a talk on where the enlightened beings go. So it's also related to this sutra, the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra from the Avatar Sanka Sutra. So I thought, okay, maybe I would just combine this all together, and it just seems like a perfect timing to do this. And this sutra is actually really, really important, not only for Pure Land practitioners, also for Mahayana Buddhists, and in fact to all beings. If all beings know about this, like how important it actually is. If we want to, maybe if I say realize enlightenment or Buddhahood may seem a bit too big, right? But if we want to live like a happy and peaceful and really blissful life, like this is your life manual. This is what we ought to do and what we ought to follow. So before we go into a bit of the introduction on the sutra, I might just also talk a little bit about Bodhisattva Manjushri. So Bodhisattva Manjushri is also related. It's also featured a little bit in the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. And later we will see all these bodhisattvas, it's really like an enterprise of bodhisattvas in the Pure Land. So Amitabha Buddha is not alone in the Pure Land. There are countless of bodhisattvas there, and Buddhas also. So sometimes when we talk about the Pure Land, people may just think, oh, there's only Amitabha Buddha, maybe Guan Yin, and maybe Da Shizhi, that's it. Well, not many people, if they don't study the proper Chinese Pure Land Buddhism, they may not be aware that, well, actually more than that, Samantabhadra is also in the Pure Land, Manjushri is also in the Pure Land, Maitreya is also in the Pure Land. And another secret, even Shakyamuni Buddha is also in the Pure Land. If you want to meet all these maybe pop stars in Buddhism after this life in the Pure Land, you will be able to meet all of them without exception, right? Whichever Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that you have heard of, you will meet in the Pure Land. And not only that, also other countless, billions and millions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, like the dust of motes, in the 10 directions, you will be able to see. The Pure Land Dharma is really, really incredible. Okay, so maybe we'll just talk a little bit about Bodhisattva Manjushri. So who is Bodhisattva Manjushri? For those who study Mahayana Buddhism, or maybe also study some Tibetan Buddhism, you would not be unfamiliar with Bodhisattva Manjushri. Most of us may have heard of Bodhisattva Manjushri, or in Chinese, Wenshu Pusa. Wenshu Pusa means Bodhisattva. So, and there are another meaning to the name, also means wonderful auspiciousness, or in Chinese, 妙吉祥菩萨. So sometimes when we talk about Mahayana Buddhism, we talk about all these great Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with all these incredible spiritual powers and capacities and ability to travel everywhere and to save all sentient beings. So to some people, maybe even some Buddhists, if they practice Theravada Buddhism, I don't know. To some people, it just seemed like a bit of fairy tale. Are these people real? Are they actually exist as real beings? They are actually real, like Amitabha Buddha, Manjushri, Samantabhadra, Guan Yin. All this I'm talking about are real being, real enlightened, highly enlightened being. And in the past, they were also like us, unenlightened, but it was really due to the countless eons, countless asankhya kalpas of eons of practices, they became fully enlightened. Why I say fully enlightened? Because Bodhisattva Manjushri, like Guan Yin, is also another Buddha who comes back. Because at one period in one world, they can only be the teaching of one Buddha. So we are now in the period of the teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha. Even when Shakyamuni Buddha is here, there are also many other Buddhas that come to help Shakyamuni Buddha. This includes Manjushri, Guanyin, and all these great Bodhisattvas. A lot of them had actually in countless eons already realized Buddhahood. But because this is the time of the period of Shakyamuni Buddha, so when they come here, they will not come as Buddha. Okay, so at one period, they could only be the teaching of one Buddha. Well, otherwise, people will be so confused. I imagine all these Buddhas all come and then talk about the Dharma, and then no one knows which Buddha to follow, right? Even already Shakyamuni Buddha and Amitabha Buddha, people are already confused. But Shakyamuni Buddha told us about Amitabha Buddha, so we are under the teaching period of Shakyamuni Buddha. Right? The Saha world during this Kappa is when Shakyamuni Buddha teach. So even other Bodhisattvas who come to assist Shakyamuni Buddha or other Buddhas, they will only appear in the position of the Bodhisattvas, but not to confuse people and also to help Shakyamuni Buddha to share the Dharma. So Manjushri is a real Bodhisattva, very important figure, and he is one of the 4 main Bodhisattvas in Chinese Mahayana Buddhism. So in China, there are 4 main mountains that represent the Bodhimandas. The Bodhimanda means where they reside, right, for all these 4 great Bodhisattvas. So the 4 main Bodhisattvas in Chinese Mahayana Buddhism are so first Manjushri, second Samantabhadra, third Guanyin, and fourth Siddhigarbha Bodhisattva. So Manjushri Bodhimanda, it's in Manwutai in Shanxi province in China. And there are many recorded accounts, cases of incarnations of Manjushri in China. Manjushri also vowed that whoever that visit my Bodhimanda, they will all meet me. So if you were to visit Mount Wutai, most likely you have also encountered Manjushri, but it's just you may not know where, which reincarnation. He could appear in any form as an ordinary being. So I'll give you just a few, just 2 examples of really well-known recorded accounts of Manjushri's incarnations in China. So first, I have shared one on my YouTube channel. It's about a poor lady who begged for food, in a temple, and then people sort of look down on her. Yeah, and then later she revealed that, oh, she is actually Bodhisattva Manjushri. So we must not look down at anyone. He just may not know, this person that you may look down or appear really poor, it could be a Bodhisattva. And another account is the really famous Chan master, Master Xu Yun, Master Empty Cloud. I share about the rebirth case of his student, Abian. That's his conventional name. Another monk. Remember, he sat in meditation and then set himself on fire. He reached a certain level of samadhi through Nianfo. His level even surpassed Master Xu Yun, so Master Empty Cloud. And Master Xu Yun is also the teacher of Xuanhua Shangren, Master Xuanhua, one who brought Chan Buddhism to the States. So Master Xu Yun, if you read his biography, a really detailed account. When he was young, he used to bow all the way for a very long period of time, maybe a few years, all the way to Mount Wutai, to show his sincerity to Bodhisattva Manjushri. He has a deep karmic connection with Bodhisattva Manjushri, and he hopes through doing this pilgrimage can help him activate his wisdom. So Manjushri represents the wisdom of Shunyata. And his sincerity really touched Manjushri. At one time during his journey, he almost got so sick, on the verge of dying. And then he encountered a beggar, an old beggar who took care of him during the journey. I really looked after him, helping to carry his luggage. And at one point, when he was almost near Mount Wutai, this beggar begged farewell with him and said, you will be looked after. And then he said, what's your name? I really want to thank you. And then he said, my name is Wenji. So my name is Wenshu. We talk about Manjushri, Wenshu, or Wenji. It's like auspiciousness. My name is auspiciousness. And he said, everyone knows me in Mount Wutai. And then after that, he disappeared. So Master Xu Yun went all the way to Mount Wutai. And then when he arrived, he kept asking people, does anyone know this person called Wenji? Because he really helped me on my journey. And then no one knew about this person, this beggar. He described he was just like a poor beggar, dressed really poorly. And then later a monk thought, how can you be so slow? Ji means auspiciousness. So he is actually the incarnation of Manjushri. Manjushri Bodhisattva has been taking care of you during your journey. So really incredible accounts of Bodhisattva Manjushri. And another one, there are really many of them. Another one related to Pure Land Buddhism, the fourth patriarch of Chinese Pure Land Buddhism, Patriarch Fa Zhao, Master Fa Zhao. At one time when he was having a meal, in his bowl suddenly appeared this really wonderful, auspicious clouds, like golden palace, like really, really beautiful scenery when he was having congee, like breakfast. And at first he did not care too much, all conditioned phenomena are illusions, but he kept drinking the meal, taking the meal. And then this kept appearing. And then later he asked someone, did you know what I saw was? Like, what was this? And then someone said, it looked like Mount Wutai. So that person said, maybe it could be a sign from Bodhisattva Manjushri to guide you to go to Mount Wutai. And eventually Master Fa Zhao set his foot on Mount Wutai and tried to see exactly what's this actually mean. What is this trying to tell him? And when he arrived in Mount Wutai one evening, like a bright light came into his room, and he just followed this bright light. And then it's like sort of he entered into, let's say, another dimension kind of thing. And the scenery that appeared is exactly like what he saw when he was having that meal. So this was another, there's a word appeared like a golden palace temple. And then it says it's the great sage bamboo temple, 大圣竹林. So, and he saw Bodhisattva Manjushri and also Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, both of them, they were expounding the Dharma to thousands of monks or Bodhisattvas. So actually, all these sages like Bodhisattvas and even Buddhas, they are still here in our world. It's just sometimes they could be in different dimensions we could not see, or they could just take up in really ordinary being that we cannot recognize. So, and Master Fa Zhao asked Bodhisattva Manjushri, now this is the Dharma ending age. So people with a lot of afflictions, like really heavy karmic obstacles, like so much troubled by all our greed, anger, and ignorance. So what kind of Dharma practice should people practice during this time? Given the Buddha Dharma has so many methods and practices. And Bodhisattva Manjushri says, there's no method that surpasses this Nianfo Dharma gate. You must Nianfo, and then you teach others to Nianfo. To the west, there's a Buddha called Amitabha Buddha, and if you Nianfo, you can go to his Pure Land, the land of ultimate bliss. And this is the number one, the unsurpassed Dharma gate for all the beings during this time. And not only that, he also gave him the prediction, because of your Nianfo, in the future, you will also realize the full Buddhahood, Anuttaya Sanya Sambodhi. So that is also another story of Patriarch Fa Zhao. And then after that, Master Fa Zhao came out and just single-heartedly spread the Pure Land Dharma. And he also created these 5 sessions of Nianfo, which we also did before. I have a video on that, 5 sessions of Nianfo, like 5 tomes of Nianfo, which Master Fa Zha sort of inspired from the sceneries, from the sutras, the words from the Infinite Life Sutra, how he imagined the sceneries in the Pure Land like, and then he sort of invented just 5 different melodies on how people can Nianfo to make Nianfo really interesting. And at that time, a lot of people, including the emperor, the high government officials, they were all, not government at that time, but emperors, they all follow Master Fa Zha to Nianfo. So that is also another account of Bodhisattva Manjushri. And Bodhisattva Manjushri represents the transcendent wisdom of shunyata, emptiness. So when we say this shunyata or emptiness, we cannot just say wisdom is different from how we may understand as like conventional wisdom. It's really transcendent or great, great wisdom of shunyata. And what is shunyata? It cannot be actually spoken of. Whatever we say will fall under phenomena, under duality. You can say emptiness means that there is no fixed, permanent essence to anything. Even Buddhahood, but this is again like another topic on this. This could be a bit too much. So all conditioned phenomena are emptiness in nature, and they keep changing, and there's no need to be attached to anything. And this even includes when one realizes enlightenment, one will not even be attached to any state called so-called enlightenment. The Diamond Sutra, the Buddha also talks about this. Also the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, even the Buddha does not think he's a Buddha. It's not like there's no such state called Anuttaya Sanya Sambodhi. It exists. But when one really attains such a state, one has no such attachment, no self. You will not identify yourself like that. Okay, anyway, in all words, all talks are just ways of convenience. So Manjushri is usually depicted as holding a green lotus on the left hand, a diamond sword on the right hand, to cut through all illusions. So in the Buddhist sutras, there are also really interesting, fascinating stories between the Buddha and Manjushri. I try to teach people about really let go of our attachment, really to cut through all illusions. Sometimes people may be like attached to also, signs, or, what my dreams mean, or maybe Amitabha Buddha gives me this sign, etc. Yes, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, sometimes they do give some kind of signs, a little bit of signs to help us deepen our faith. But also, this is also not to be attached. I just cut through all illusions. And riding a lion. So Buddha Dharma is like lion's roar. And Bodhisattva Manjushri is also known as the teacher of 7 Buddhas, 七佛之师 in Chinese. So because he is a Buddha who comes back. Initially, when Shakyamuni Buddha generated bodhicitta, it was actually under Manjushri. Also really interesting story in the sutras about when Shakyamuni Buddha generated bodhicitta. It was also due to under the guidance of Manjushri. So Manjushri is a great Buddha and Bodhisattva in our world. So appear in many Mahayana sutras. It really shows how great wisdom Bodhisattva Manjushri has. Such as the Vimalakirti Sutra, where he debated with the lay Buddhists, Vimalakirti, where all these arhats, they were so scared to go and debate with him, but Bodhisattva Manjushri can. And Avatamsaka Sutra are the most important Mahayana sutras, which is also related to what we're going to talk about, the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, which is the last chapter of Avatamsaka Sutra. So Avatar Sanka Sutra is the first sutra that the Buddha talked about it once he realized enlightenment. And this you may not hear for people who study Theravada Buddhism. The story generally we hear is that after the Buddha realized enlightenment, he came out from the meditative state and then he went to the deer park and taught the 5 disciples about the Four Noble Truths and Noble Eightfold Path. So this is like the sort of common story we hear. But in Mahayana Buddhism, there is actually much more beyond that. So after the Buddha realized enlightenment, he sat under the Bodhi tree in total for 49 days. And during that time, it was at 21 days, he was actually expounding the Avatar Sanka Sutra, the Flower Adornment Sutra, to who? To highly enlightened beings. So, and also for those who study some Mahayana sutras, such as the Lotus Sutras, etc., you will know that it's not the first time Shakyamuni Buddha has come to our world to teach. He has been here for many, many times. And Shakyamuni Buddha had also actually long ago realized Buddhahood. He just came back here again to show us. So Mahayana, the great Mahayana really revealed a lot of untold truth that you may not get from just the Theravada Buddhism, which only teach you about arhat, self-liberation, but that's not a full picture of the Buddha Dharma. The purpose of Buddhism, the Buddha Dharma, is to realize full Buddhahood. In order to realize full Buddhahood, one must take up the Bodhisattva path, no exception. One must generate bodhicitta in order to realize Buddhahood, and one must follow the 10 great practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra in order to realize Buddhahood. So one can see the importance of this sutra and why I want to talk about this. It's really important for all the people. If you have the aspiration to realize full Buddhahood, maybe not in this lifetime, but after we go to the Pure Land. And sometimes people ask, what do people do in the Pure Land? After study this, you will know what do people do in the Pure Land, what's sort of the lifestyle like in the Pure Land. And we can even start to practice it now. We don't need to wait till we go to the Pure Land to practice it. If we want to live a happy, a peaceful and blissful life, a life that is really full of meaning, a very meaningful life, and not to waste our time here on earth. This is what you need to know. The 10 great practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So before we go into the sutra, I'll also talk a little bit briefly on Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. Since we already talked about Manjushri, it's only fair we introduce our key figure of the sutra, which is Samantabhadra, in Chinese, Pu Xian Pu Sa. So also one of the 4 major bodhisattvas in Chinese Buddhism. And literally the name means universal good. Bodhisattva, universal good. Sometimes you see that's how it's translated in some of the sutras. So in China, Man'er in Sichuan province is the Bodhi Manda of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. There's a really, really tall golden statue of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra there. A really incredible spiritual mountain and place. And he's most famous, well known for his 10 famous great vows and practices and vows. So, like I said, all bodhisattvas must learn from Pu Xian Pu Sa, must learn from Samantabhadra in order to realize full Buddhahood. Really no exception. Even after going to the Pure Land, even we near for and go to the Pure Land, you still need to practice the 10 great practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. And if you were to practice this now already, like in this life, before you go to the Pure Land, then you can attain the highest grade of rebirth for sure, if you can practice that and you nianfo. So we can see why this is an important sutra in Mahayana Buddhism, and also why it's been included as one of the 5 Pure Land Sutras in Chinese Pure Land Buddhism. There's really a good reason for that. And Puxian Pusa is usually depicted as riding a white elephant with 6 tusks. So 6 tusks also represents the 6 parameters of Bodhisattvas. And remember, when we talk about the Bodhisattva path, we talk about one must also practice the 6 parameters, giving, precepts, forbearance, diligence, meditation, and prajna, wisdom. But the 10 great practices and vows will be an upgrade on the 6 parameters. Later we will see that. And elephant represents great strength. Right? Elephant in the animal world is an animal with great strength. And yet they're also gentle and soft. Right? They look really adorable. Right? They have a touch of gentleness. It also represents compassion. Right? Bodhisattva has great strength, great spiritual power, but they also combine this with great compassion to save all beings. Some people, they could have also great strength and even great spiritual power, but they don't have compassion. If they don't have compassion, they can do really evil things with their power, and that's definitely not the Bodhisattva path. Right? To take up the Bodhisattva path, one must generate bodhicitta. And how to generate bodhicitta is through compassion. And how we generate compassion, later we'll also see from the 10 great practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. It's white elephant. White also represents purity, right? Without afflictions, untainted. So a bit of background of the Avatar Sanka Sutra. So Avatar Sanka Sutra is an extremely large sutras, right? The biggest, the longest sutras of Mahayana sutras on earth. Is also called the king of all sutras. It is indeed the king of all sutras. And this is only a very small portion, right? What's available on earth. There are more full volumes that we cannot really see in this human realm because it's not up to our ability. So what is available here on earth is limited, but still much more than what we can already take for most people. There are like 80 volumes. So that's been translated in Chinese. So the original Sanskrit had a little bit more. If you want to know like the history of Avatar Sanka Sutra, sort of how he got recovered to the human realm. So before it has been hidden in the world of Nagas, and it was really due to Bodhisattva Nagarjuna that recovered just the last part. There are 3 big volumes, but he only recovered just the last part and only just the table of contents, a little bit, the tiniest bit back to the human world, because he thought, sentient beings in this world with our mind, that's at most what we can take. Already nowadays, it's really rare for any Dharma teachers to even talk about Avatar Sanka Sutra. So Master Chin Kong, I think he expounded a little bit of the Avatar Sanka Sutra, but maybe not in the full volume. But that's also fine, not important for many people. They really cannot take it. What's the most important of the Avatar Sanka Sutra is really the last chapter, is what we're going to talk about, the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. If you want to ask what this sutra actually talk about, so in short, this sutra reveals what is the true state of the Buddha, the life of the Buddhas and Bodhisattva, the inconceivable state. It is inconceivable. If you go and read the Avatar Sanka Sutra, I think there is an English translation by the famous translator Thomas Clary on that, but he only translated just a little bit, maybe the 40 volumes, and not included the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So this came in later in Chinese when Emperor Wu Zetian went to recover more of the translation. He invited someone to translate more from Sanskrit to Chinese, and eventually they translated this chapter. And then people were like, okay, because the previously we had already some translated in Chinese, and then Emperor Wu Zetian in the Tang Dynasty at that time, when she read it, she was so blown away just by this inconceivable state of the Buddha. The Buddha state, the state of the Buddha, Buddha lands, Buddha's worlds is just inconceivable. And then she thought, okay, this must not be complete, because after he finished, he thought, okay, there's still more, there must be more. And then she searched everywhere, eventually found also a great Dharma master who had more of the Sanka sutras in Sanskrit. And he invited him to China to translate them more in Chinese. So for those who are interested, you can also go and read about it. It talks about really infinite cosmos and worlds that the scientists are starting to sort of recognize how there are really infinite realms upon realms, infinite worlds upon worlds, infinite cosmos of layers of cosmos. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, it described in great details the formation of worlds, all these different worlds, different shapes of all these different worlds. And know that Buddha did not use like a telescope to look outside to know. Buddha knows everything. At the level of the Buddha, I'm talking about full Buddhahood, right? Anuttaya Sanya Sambodhi, the ultimate Buddhahood, right? Not at the state of Arhat. What the Arhat knows is very limited, right? Even for Bodhisattvas. I'm talking about at the state of full Buddhahood. One knows absolutely everything in the entire Dharma realms. Dharma realm means entire cosmos, absolutely everything. One has the ability to know absolutely everything, past, present, and future. That's how Shakyamuni Buddha can predict what the Dharma ending age look like, which sutra will disappear first, and what happened later, and which Buddha will come down, and all that. That's how he knew. Already back in 2,600 years ago, he knew already everything. He knew how the Buddha Dharma will play out in the history of in the human history, in the human world already. So really inconceivable state of the Buddha. And if you want to get a glimpse of that, you can go and read this sutra at your spare time. Also not an easy read, because even just the opening, you will be blown away by how many names of the Buddhas that you have not even seen. And this opening of the sutra already, like, you know, many names of the Buddhas in all these different worlds. So really inconceivable state. But we're not going to talk about that. Don't worry. But we're just going to talk about just the last chapter, the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, also the highlight of the Avatamsaka Sutra. And before we talk about that, I'll also give you a little bit of background to that. There's a little bit before this chapter, what happened before the chapter, so you will understand better when you go and read the sutra. So the last chapter in this last volume, also called Entering into the Dharma Realm. Entering into the Dharma Realm, or in Chinese, 入法界品. It's about this Bodhisattva called Sudana Kumara. In Chinese, 善财童子, also means the trial of wealth. So Sudana Kumara generated the unsurpassed bodhicitta. So he generated the mind to realize full Buddhahood, also to help all sentient beings. He generated the Anuttaya Sanya Sambodhi, and he wanted to realize full Buddhahood. So you can say that it's a quest for full enlightenment for him. And he visited 53 good teachers, like great teachers, and asked what he should do. So in Buddhism, it's also important when you are on the path of learning the Buddha Dharma, it's important you are guided by a good teacher. If not, maybe we cannot meet 53 good teachers. That at least if we can meet one good teacher, it's important we have the guidance of a good teacher. Absolutely important. Even though the Buddha nature is within all beings, but without a good teacher, it's difficult for us to see, to realize, or to know how to realize, to know which method to actually practice. So there's a story in the Buddha Sutras. Ananda, the Buddha's senior disciple and attendant, asked the Buddha, so what role does a good teacher play in one's journey of success to enlightenment? So Ananda thought the Buddha would just say maybe half of the role, right? Because the teacher taking the student, but the student has to walk the way, right? That's also maybe a lot of us may think that way. The Buddha actually says 100%, right? Actually, the role of a great teacher plays 100%, all of it in our success. If any of us were successful on our path to enlightenment, to realize full Buddhahood, it's really due to our teacher. It's not so much about us. Like maybe we have a little bit of role to play, but the credit really has to go for our teacher. So if I Nianfo and go to the Pure Land, my credit goes to Master Renshan and also Master Qingkong. Right? These great Pure Land teachers that really help to share the Dharma. So I'm able to know exactly which path to take. So it's really, really important to have the guidance of a great teacher. And Shancai Tongzi, like Sudana, is very fortunate that he had 53 great teachers on his path towards enlightenment, towards full Buddhahood. So no wonder he could realize full Buddhahood. So he had actually already also realized Buddhahood, but that was also his story, his account on how he actually realized Buddhahood. And now for those who know, Sudana is the attendant to Guan Yin. Also, you will meet him in the Pure Land. So Sudana initially went to see Bodhisattva Manjushri. And then he asked Bodhisattva Manjushri, I have generated the unsurpassed bodhicitta, the heart for Anutaya Sanya Sambodhi, and what should I practice in order to realize Buddhahood? And Manjushri told him, well, you should go and visit some great teachers. I'll recommend to you first, you go to monk De Yun. So in Chinese, De Yun Bi Qiu, or in English, it can be translated as like the virtuous cloud, like monk virtuous cloud. First, you go to him, and then you go to all these people, and then you will also go to see Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, and to see how they all perfect their Buddhahood with the great practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So like I just said, like for any Bodhisattva, if you want to realize full Buddhahood in your life, or just if you want to realize Buddhahood, you have to practice the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. You have to perfect all these practices, and then you will realize Buddhahood. This is also the same after we go to the Pure Land, but it will be so much easier in the Pure Land with the guidance of all these great enlightened beings. And interestingly, the first great teacher he met, so the monk virtual cloud, De Yun Bi Qiu, the first Dharma gate he learned was, guess what? The Pure Land Dharma gate, Nianfo Dharma. De Yun Bi Qiu told him, in the past, it was really due to Nianfo, so I realized full Buddhahood. So I recommend you to also practice this Nianfo method to go to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land. And then he also visited the other 51 great teachers, and eventually came to Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. And then we have the last chapter of the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So it's to the end that he went like a circle, a full circle again and then go to Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, and that's the beginning of the sutra, the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. And that's when Samantabhadra tells Sudana, if you were to realize Buddhahood, this is what you need to practice. Okay, so that's the beginning of the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, the highlight of the Avatamsaka Sutra. And when Sudana eventually came to Bodhisattva Samantabhadra and asked for his advice, how he realized Buddhahood and what he ought to practice in order to realize Buddhahood. And then Bodhisattva Samantabhadra told him, these are the 10 great practices and vows you need to practice. It's a must for all Bodhisattvas, for anyone who wants to realize Buddhahood, without exception. And the reason why this is one of the 5 Pure Land Sutras is that towards the end of this sutra, you will see after Bodhisattva Samantabhadra tells him about all the 10 great vows, then he said, also, you must Nianfo and seek rebirth to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land. He encouraged all the great Bodhisattvas in the world of Vairocana, in the world of Avatar Sanka, to all seek rebirth to the Pure Land of Amitabha Buddha. So including Manjushri, Sudana, so all of them all go to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land. And there it will be the fastest, easiest to realize Buddhahood. So sometimes people have this misconception about the Pure Land Dharma, or they may look down at Pure Land practitioners and think only, maybe grandmas, people who are illiterate or who cannot realize enlightenment, who are stupid, whatever, they practice Nianfo and go to the Pure Land. No, it's not. Right? This chapter clearly tells us even highly enlightened beings, they would still go to the Pure Land. So in fact, all the Dharma gates arise from the Avatamsaka Sutra. When the Buddha first expounded the sutra after he realized enlightenment, Avatamsaka Sutra encompasses absolutely all Buddhist practices. Whichever school's practices you will be able to find in the Avatamsaka Sutra. And eventually it goes back to the Pure Land Dharma. Everything returns to the Pure Land. So we can see how inconceivable this Pure Land Dharma gate is. And also Sudana also showed us his journey. It's also like that. He ran a full circle at the beginning. Already a virtual cloud monk told him to Nianfo, and then all the other Bodhisattva, each of them teach him one method. Eventually, a full circle back to Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, Samantabhadra still taught him to Nianfo. So we can see that all Dharma gates, doesn't matter what you practice, eventually, if you were to realize the ultimate full Buddhahood, you also need to Nianfo and go to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land, including a lot of Chan practitioners these days. They also Nianfo and go to the Pure Land. Tibetan Buddhist Nianfo and go to the Pure Land, in addition to whatever other practices they may adopt. This is the same for all the schools in Chinese Buddhism. All the 8 different schools in Chinese Buddhism, in addition to their own practice, they will also add on the Nianfo practice to seek rebirth to the Pure Land, also largely due to Avatamsaka Sutra. Initially, a lot of Mahayana Buddhists, they also find it difficult to believe in the Pure Land Dharma, because if you just say Amitabha Sutra, notice they have doubt. But if you tell them Avatamsaka Sutra, you tell them even Bodhisattva Samantabhadra Manjushri, they also go to the Pure Land, then they have no doubt. They cannot doubt at all, because if they are Mahayana Buddhist, they must believe in the Avatamsaka Sutra. Without the Avatamsaka Sutra, there's no Mahayana Buddhism. We can say almost like that. So what are the 10 great practices and vows of Bodhisattva Manjushri? And like I said, it's an upgrade of the 6 parameters. First, to pay homage to all the Buddhas. Second, to praise the Tathagatas. Third, to extensively cultivate making offerings. Fourth, to repent of all karmic obstacles and reform. Fifth, to rejoice in merit. Sixth, to request the Buddhas to turn the Dharma wheel. 7th, to request the Buddhas to remain in the world. 8th, to constantly learn from the Buddhas. 9th, to constantly accord with all sentient beings. 10th, to universally transfer all merit. So these 10 great practices and vows, we may think it's quite simple. It looks simple. And we may not completely understand what exactly this means. But don't worry, in the next sessions, next week, we'll go through each of them one by one. So I plan to do maybe 10 sessions on all the 10 great vows, and maybe just one more session on, in the end, how they all go to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land. So maybe a total of 12 sessions on this series of talk. And we'll also see how we can actually apply these 10 great vows in our life. It can be really our daily life manual on how to live a happy life in the human world, in this world. Really, it's really totally practical and applicable. We may think it does not seem so practical. It's not. If you understand the essence of the meaning of each vow, and you know how to apply, it's really, really practical. Now in my everyday life, this is really my life manual every day. I also look at my behaviors and also, try to follow this guidance. Now, if you are on the Mahayana path, you are on the Bodhisattva path, this is what you should follow. Apart from the 6 parameters, the 6 parameters are already in the 10 great vows. The 10 great vows is really like an upgrade of the 6 parameters. So you can just follow the 10 great vows, and you will definitely not go wrong, for sure. You will not go wrong with this. So the last chapter, Practices and Vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, the full title is actually called The Inconceivable State of Liberation of the Practices and Vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So if you want to achieve the inconceivable state of liberation, which is really full Buddhahood, when you are at the level of full Buddhahood, already inconceivable, it cannot even be talked about, you cannot even conceived with our current mind. Even for a highly enlightened bodhisattva, they cannot completely conceive the state of the Buddha. The higher can see the lower cannot conceive or understand the higher. So it's called inconceivable state of liberation. If you want to achieve the inconceivable state of liberation, then you need to follow the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So like I said, it reviews the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas' inconceivable state of liberation and the means to attain such state, the method to attain such state. And these are just the 10 great practices and vows that we just briefly discuss, but which we'll discuss in details in the next sessions. So Avatar Sanka Sutra encompasses all Dharma gates. All Dharma gates arise from the Avatar Sanka Sutra. This sutra, you can see it like a big tree. Each tree has lots of branch. Each Dharma gate is like a branch. And this tree already encompasses them all. But in the end, all these branches will all go to the Pure Land. It's exactly what this sutra shows us. And in the end, Bodhisattva Samantabhadra asks all the Bodhisattvas from the world of Avatar Sanka to all seek rebirth to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land. All these Bodhisattvas are highly, highly enlightened Bodhisattvas. I'm talking about Bodhisattvas from the first stage of dwelling. So 52 stages of Bodhisattvas, 52 stages of enlightenment. And when you are a Bodhisattva at the stage of dwelling, the first stage of dwelling, you can already be called a non-regression. You will no longer regress from your practice, from your vow, from your speech, behaviors, everything. You will no longer regress. Unlike us, we regress every day, every moment with our practice, with our vow, with our bodhicitta, everything. But for enlightened being at the stage of non-regression, already a very high level of enlightened beings, and they will still go to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land. This is because even for highly enlightened bodhisattvas, there's still a relatively distant for them to realize Buddhahood, full Buddhahood. It's still a long time, actually. And if they were to realize full Buddhahood, the most efficient, the fastest, is actually to go to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land. And there, they will also realize Buddhahood by really quickly. So that's what the Bodhisattvas try to show us. And also Bodhisattva Manjushri, everyone all go to the Pure Land. So if you read the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra towards the end, then you will know where all these enlightened beings go. It's not like enlightened beings don't go anywhere or they dissolve in this great emptiness of nothingness. Like sometimes I hear people think enlightenment means that one just sort of like dissolve into nothingness, like emptiness, and they no longer appear in any form. It's not like that. A really great misunderstanding and misconception of what enlightenment of Buddhahood actually means. Like Buddhahood means infinite light and life. At that level, already inconceivable state, they can be in anywhere. The Dharma body is everywhere, and then they can also take up any form to enter into any dimension, enter into all the worlds in the 10 directions at ease. This really talk a lot about it in the Avatar Sanka Sutra, in the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. And so we will be able to see all these enlightened beings when we go to the Pure Land. Really inconceivable. The Pure Land Dharma is also inconceivable. The Pure Land Dharma can be very simple, just simple nianfo with faith, vow, and practice, and you go to the Pure Land. Or it can be really, really profound and deep, the deepest actually. Yes. So it's good also to approach the Pure Land Dharma in different perspectives for people with different capacities and different roots. Okay, so tonight ends my sharing on the first introductory session on the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. And for next week, next Sunday, we'll look at each of the 10 great vows in details and how we can apply them on our everyday life. And I guarantee you, if you know even how to apply a little bit of the 10 great vows in your daily life, your life will be so much better, happier, more peaceful, and more blissful. And also I'm talking about from my personal experience. Of course, I'm just a student on the path and have a lot to learn, a lot to practice, but just really these 10 great vows have really benefited me in my everyday life, and they're really totally practical. And you can apply in your work, in your family, everyday life situation. This is your life manual of happiness and also to eternal happiness. Okay, thank you everyone. So that completes my sharing. If anyone has anything they'd like to share, you're also more than welcome. Is a Maitreya Bodhisattva? Good question. Is a Maitreya Bodhisattva in Tusita heaven? He is also in the Pure Land. Yes, he is also in the Pure Land. Maitreya Bodhisattva is in the inner core of the Tusita heaven, but also in the Pure Land. You will see from the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra in the Sutra exact words. It says, Maitreya Bodhisattva is also there. And I tell you who else is also there. Shakyamuni Buddha is also there. And many other Buddhas that you have heard. They also have incarnations in there. Thank you, Amitabha.